Well, hi there. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I prattle on and on and on about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And I'm kind of excited to get to talk about this movie. I was very glad to get it for my collection. I already had the DVD, but I was never really happy with the transfer, but it was the only thing that you could ever get, and then they released this. So we are going to go all the way back to 1974. Now, I will say that there's one thing different about, and it's very weird in the movie industry, and that is that movies made for TV in the 70s were so unusual compared to the late 80s, 90s, and forward, because you would expect the subject matter to not be as interesting. I mean, you're talking about the 70s. Yet, for some reason, the 70s produced some of the most interesting TV shows, comedies, like The Jeffersons and Good Times and All in the Family and Maude and stuff like that. And their TV movies were just as interesting as far as not exactly what you would expect as a movie cinephile today looking back on the 70s. You wouldn't expect to find the kind of things that you can find. And this is one of my favorite movies. I, of course, wasn't there to see it when it originally aired, but I really loved this movie. And I don't know why I'm acting like I'm about to surprise you. It's in the fucking title. Oh my god, I didn't even think of that. But yes, we are going to talk about Bad Ronald. Was he really, though? Was he really? That's the question. And I, as a psychologist, have got something to say about that. But yes, Bad Ronald. This is one of the Scott Jacoby. I love Scott Jacoby. I had my little crushes on him when I was a teen and started seeing some of his, reruns of some of his stuff. He had a little trilogy when he came on the scene. He did a movie called Rivals in 1972. Then he did Bad Ronald and The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. So there's like this trilogy of, just really fantastic 70s movies. And Bad Ronald is one of my favorite, and Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. And I haven't been able to get a hold of Rivals. It's like when I have found it on occasion on Blu-ray or something like that, it's like 50, 60 bucks or something, and it's just like, I'll go find it somewhere, a download or something. But yeah, we're going to talk about Bad Ronald. Bad Ronald was released in 1974 as a TV movie. This, of course, is the newest remastered release that has everything left in it, not edited for TV or anything like that. Of course, there really isn't anything. I don't know. I think they toned down a little bit of the scare scenes, but it's all here, and I'll talk about this release at the end. But we've got to get started, yeah. So it was directed by Buzz Kulik, and it was written by Andrew Peter Marin. The screenplay, which was taken from the book by John Holbrook Vance. Now this stars Scott Jacoby, as I have continuously said, and Pippa Scott, John Larch. Kim Hunter plays his mother, which is like phenomenal. And Dabney Coleman, who you remember as the asshole from 9 to 5, who was so fantastic in 9 to 5. He plays the dad of the family that moves in. And so let's get this storytelling on the road. Don't you love the shirt? But we're in freezing ass Florida, and that's supposed to be an oxymoron or a dichotomy or some big fancy word like that, but I can't think of which one it is. But it is freezing here. So, heater. See the heater? There's another one over there. It's cold. Like 20 degrees kind of cold, which is, I'm sure you northern people are laughing at that, but this isn't funny in Florida. So, Bad Ronald opens. Now that we've got the credits out of the way, I can turn on my pretty moving screensaver, which flashes little lights at me. So we start off, we are introduced to Ronald and his mom, who are having a birthday cake celebration. And he is a geeky 17-year-old obsessed with his little comic book universe called Altara that he has came up with in his head. He wants to write a comic book series, which, there's nothing crazy about that. I know a certain person on a channel right now who is like writing his own comic. So he's a 17-year-old little comic guy, and his mom is there, and they're having a celebration of his birthday. They talk about, how she can't wait for him to be a doctor, and she obviously has something wrong with her because she keeps like holding her side. And he keeps telling her, why don't you go, you need to get treatment. You can't wait for 10 years till I'm a doctor for you to get some help with this. And we don't really know what it is at this time. But, so they have this nice little chat. You get to know them. You get to know him. There's nothing really strange about him. There's, other than him being the typical, maybe it's just because I was, kind of one of the weirdos in school too. Now, I did get suspended twice from school because of the way I dressed. But I'm a punk rock heavy metal guy, so, skate punks. We always got suspended for the way we were dressed in a small town. But, so, after they have their little discussion, he wants to go, he gets dressed and he's going out, and she asks him where he's going. And he says that he is going over to Laurie's house, and this is, I guess he's got a little crush on a high school crush on this girl named Laurie, and he's going to go over to her house and ask her out on a date. Now, I've always felt, sad about, bullying and mistreatment of people like that, but at the same time, just like you heard his mother saying, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to go around these people when you know that they don't like you? I don't understand why, the innocence of kids, and we are talking 74, but the innocence of kids who will just, I know they don't want to believe it, and you don't want to make them pessimistic by explaining to them that the world is shit and that they should, just chill out and not worry about it, and things will be all right later on when they're adults. But kids in school, they just don't get it. That's why they're still kids. So, but you still feel sorry for them. So I did feel very sorry for him. And you're not going to hear me bashing him. He is not like the thing on IMDb. I started to say that International Movie Database, the little summary, but I think I closed it. Let me see. I was going to say that I took umbrage with that. Yeah, it's still there. A perverted teenage boy who lives in the walls of a house finds the house sold to a family after his mother dies, and he falls for one of the new residents. I take umbrage with that because that is completely not the story. It's not the story. I don't like that at all. You would think that they would have a bit more accurate, because first of all, there's really nothing perverted about him. He's not doing anything. And there's two, where this movie is concerned, people who know it, there's two sides. Those that think Bad Ronald is bad, and those that feel sorry for him. And I am one of those that feel sorry for him, and nobody's ever going to change that, including you, Grande, if you happen to watch this. Bad Ronald isn't bad. Bad Ronald goes crazy. Understandably so. But, so he's heading out to this girl's house, Laurie, to invite her to the movies. So he shows up and he looks normal. I mean, it's not like he looks like a super freak or anything. It's not like, he showed up at a Mormon household dressed like, Sid Vicious. I mean, he looks like a normal guy, but of course he's the geek that everybody bullies at school. So he shows up. The mom takes him around to the pool, where they, of course, immediately begin to harangue him, harass him, make fun of him. Oh yeah, what are you doing here? And he goes up to her very nice and gentlemanly and asks her, would she like to go to the theaters? And she's like, no, thank you. And so they all start making fun of him, and it makes him. Come on, what would you think about that? I mean, it's just wrong. It's just crappy. But you got a bunch of 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And who was that dude in the pool with the mustache? I'm like, if you're a 17-year-old and you've got this big black pimp mustache, I mean, he looked like the guy from Star 80, that ended up killing Dorothy Stratton. He looked like him. Even Hugh Hefner said he looked like a pimp. This guy looked like a pimp, but I got off track there because it just looked like it was supposed to be a bunch of high schoolers, and this guy looked like a 30-year-old pimp. But in any event, they're making fun of him, and he leaves, and he, goes out the fence. He accepts the abuse, and he goes out the fence. He, of course, is embarrassed and ashamed. I mean, he's just been humiliated by a bunch of people, and according to what his mom said, and according to what you could probably figure out for yourself, he's probably had a lot of that. He's probably used to being humiliated and bullied at school. So he goes out the back way, and as he's going down the hill, he trips over a bunch of cinder blocks. Those rectangle things with the two big holes in it, the cinder blocks. Well, he trips over several of them, and Laurie's little sister, Carol is riding a bicycle, and she's about 13, 12, 11, 12 maybe. And he trips, and he bumps into her, and she falls off the bike. She isn't hurt or anything like that. She just falls off the bike. He says he's sorry, and he politely, tries to help her up, and she immediately, like probably everybody else does, she immediately starts raging on him and ripping him to shreds. Ew, get your hands off of me. What are you doing here? Why are you, let me guess, you're here to ask, my sister Lori? You're here to, are you still after Lori? Don't you know she can't stand you? Nobody can stand you. She only likes football players. And, you're so weird, and you're a freak, and your mom is too. I would punch the bitch out, okay? I mean, it was just totally uncalled for. So he understandably, he even tries to walk away. And then she starts trashing his mom, She's like, your mom is weird too, you're also weird. And it's like, okay, so granted, alright, he's just a kid too. So he turns around to her, and walks back over and says, you apologize for that. You apologize for that. She's like, I ain't apologizing for anything. And then she slaps the fuck out of him. Physical contact, assault. Alright, she slaps the shit out of him when he puts his hands on her shoulders, It's and she's, like I said, she slaps the absolute shit out of him. Okay, now at this point, he does grab her by the face, like this. He grabs her by the face and he pushes her. He didn't mean to hurt her, you know what I mean? It was just, did she mean to, was she trying to kill him when she slapped the shit out of him? No, and he wasn't trying to kill her. But when he pushed her, she fell backwards and hit one of those very cinder blocks that he had tripped over. It kills her ass. I mean, the way it was, I mean, it's a pretty, yeah, you see it. And so she's dead, and he panics. Okay. Next thing you see, he's walking into his mom, he's walking into the house, and he's all dirty. And he tries to go upstairs, and the mom is like, what are you doing? Stop right there. What are you doing? Where have you been? So, he's a good boy. And he turns around, he tells his mom the truth. And he says that Carol was screaming at him and calling him names, and he pushed her, and she's dead. And the mom is just like, she starts to do her lecture. I told you, why have you always been doing this? I mean, I know kids want friends, but if you're being abused and bullied, parents really need to find some way to get them to understand that it's all right, to find something else to do. If people just don't like you at school, or you're just, you will find a group to hang around later. Don't let it put yourself in danger. So she starts to tell him this lecture, and then he tells her that he buried her. Well, now you're fucked. And that's kind of what she said. She's like, if it was an accident, why did you bury her? That's what the cops would say. We're screwed. So it's a wonderful scene because that's right, and you would say that yourself. You would be like, what the fuck you do that for? I mean, now you really screwed everything, because we could have probably not gotten into a lot of trouble, but once you bury her, you're screwed, and that's true. So it's really cool the way she starts, like, you can see the little mental calculators going off in her head, like going, what do we do? What do we do? I've got to protect my son. He's good, and he is good, and this is wrong, and I know what's going to happen. He's going to go to prison for the rest of his life. So she starts coming up with all these little ideas. None of them are good. And then she comes up with the idea. There's a bathroom, a big bathroom. It's a big Victorian house, so it's got 4 bedrooms and 2 huge bathrooms, right? So she's like, the way this house is set up, we can just turn that bathroom into a room to hide you until things blow over and we can leave. So it's not that she was going to try to get him to go away. She was literally going to let things blow over, and then her and him would, she would save up the money, and her and him would just sneak out of town, and she would go away with her son. Good plan. Except shit happens, So let me catch up to the notes. I think I wrote, it's like a book, okay? Turns a large bedroom into a large bathroom into a hidden bedroom, okay? So now, the next day, as they plan, the cops come, and they're looking. It's like a day and a half or two after the incident, and they have managed to make the bathroom disappear. It literally looks like you would never even think that anything was there, the way the house is constructed. So the cops come. She acts all innocent, like, I don't know, my son's never came back. They go up into his bedroom, where he not only... Now, I don't understand why they left the coat that he was wearing, because it had blood on it. So it's not very criminal. But then again, he's not. That's the whole point. We're getting into that bad Ronald argument. But, he left a note. They planted a note for the cops to find. So they're an ingenious little pair that says, I did something bad and I've got to go away. So they wanted to convince the cops that he had taken off, which they do. That works perfectly. So there's only one real big problem, and that's that nosy neighbor that lives next door. Because remember, we're not in a rural area. We're in a suburb. So we're talking house, 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 house. So you're on a suburban street. You're not out in some rural place where you can hide, out in the open. So they have a real nosy neighbor, this old lady next door, who's like constantly peeking through their windows and stuff. So they really do. He has to stay in that room. And it's an ingenious little room. And the way they have everything set up in the pantry, down at the bottom where no one would notice, notice there's a big panel for him to come in and out of. And he stays in there most of the time, so the cops think that he's gone. And, after they found Carol Matthews in the shallow grave that he had done, and so there he is. He's stuck in that situation. So here we are, thinking everything's fine. Now, you begin to see that whatever's wrong with her, because you still don't know yet, whatever's wrong with his mom is getting worse. So you are also introduced to his fantasy world, this Altara. He's begun, painting the walls with it, and you have to remember that this room, it has no mental stimulation. There is no windows. It's an in the middle of the house bathroom, so it's completely a closed-in box. Not good for your mind. So we're introduced to his comic book universe, this altar that he has come up with, the princess and the prince and the duke and the fighting that's going on between the houses and this thing, and it's really interesting. So Ronald is staying relatively stable at this time because he's getting a lot of mental stimulation and grounding from his mother. Now, his mom is, she'll eat dinner in the pantry with him, with the panel open, and he will sneak out on occasion when they're sure no one's around. So he's staying mentally stable at this time, and everything seems to be going out as the weeks and weeks go by. She continues to get sicker though, and finally she ends up having to tell him that she has to go in for gallbladder surgery. So we find out that it's gallbladder surgery. So obviously her gallbladder. Now, I don't have a gallbladder in real life here. I had gallbladder surgery years ago. I lost my gallbladder. And so I was like, oh, gallbladder surgery, yeah, that hurts. Not the surgery, but your gallbladder going bad is not fun. So I really understood, oh, that was what was going on with her wincing and stuff. Okay, so that explained it all. So she's got to go to have gallbladder surgery, which is a relatively simple thing, especially today. But even in '74, gallbladder surgery wasn't some big, huge deal. So she said she's going to be gone for a week for the surgery and the healing, because I guess back then they had to actually cut you open, whereas today they just do what's called laparoscopic surgery, which is they just put a couple holes in you, and then they go in with these things and do it without cutting you actually open. But little medical info for you. So there you go. She's off to the hospital. She packs him full of food, and you begin to see pretty much immediately. I felt real sorry for him at that moment when she was going to leave the next morning, because you could tell he was really afraid. Now, after being in this room for probably 2 months at this time, I think that he was afraid that things are bad enough without her input. He may have already seen his mental stability waning just a little bit. So she goes off to the hospital, and she tells him everything will be all right, and she goes off to the hospital. And this poor kid, he knows absolutely nothing. So a week goes by, and he is left to his own devices. There's an interesting scene where we get to see the nosy neighbor, when he sneaks out to get some milk because he's tired of the powdered milk. He sneaks out to get a little milk, and almost gets caught by the nosy neighbor. I mean, she is like, well, she goes right up to the windows and looks in and stuff, and the back doors and stuff. So a week goes by, and then another week goes by, and you have to really put yourself in this guy's situation, this kid's situation. I mean, he's a weird little geek anyway, and now he's been completely isolated, scared to death. that he's going to prison for the rest of his life and he's trapped in this little room. He's losing it, let's face it. You know, he's beginning to disassociate. It's called dissociative disorder. And that's exactly what's happening to him. He's going stir crazy. So, and living completely in this fantasy of this Altara world that he has made up. So, another week goes by. So it's like 3 weeks have went by. Your mom is just gone. How do you get food? What are you going to do? So, next thing he knows, he hears noise, and he thinks after weeks that his mom is back, right? And he's listening through the walls, and it's a real estate agent with, I guess, his dad's sister or his mom's sister, one or the other. But they walk in, and with the real estate agent, and you hear the lady say, "I can't believe she's dead over something so simple." And now his dad wants to sell the property immediately. So this is how he finds out that his protector, that his mother, his mom is dead. She's gone. She's gone. That's how you find that out? Through the wall? After you've been in this situation for 3 months now? So, he starts trying to come up with a new plan, and that is, how do I sustain myself in this situation? So, in the scene where he comes out after finding that out and goes through her bedroom and takes mementos and starts trying to pack food into his little hideaway, it's very, very sad, when he starts crying in her bedroom because what the fuck are we gonna do now? So he comes out and he drills little holes in the walls. Now all the furniture's gone because we're skipping ahead through time, of course. They've come and removed all of their property, so the house is bare. They're getting it ready to sell. He's still in this little room in the middle of the house, and he's drilled little holes in the walls and stuff like that. And finally we see Dabney Coleman's wife. She comes in, she's looking at the house. She brings the rest of the family. They do notice, they're like, I don't understand why there's 4 bedrooms and only 1 bathroom when there should be at least 2. And the real estate agent was just like, I don't know, maybe bathrooms weren't that important back then when it was built. So it's not like they were so stupid they didn't notice, how would a big giant house only have 1 bathroom in it? But it is a big bathroom, she said, but still there's only 1. So, yeah, they did notice it, but the house is so beautiful that you get to see Dabney come in and the 3 girls. When he sees the youngest one, because the other 2, I guess the girls look about 19, 17, and 15. So that's kind of about what they look like to me. I'm not good at age, but that's what they look like. So the younger one looks remarkably like this giant poster that he's painted on the wall of the princess of his fantasy land, Altara. And he says that while he's peeking through the holes looking at her. It's like, oh my God, you're here. You've come for me. Now is when you kind of start knowing things are going wrong. Things are going wrong, up here in his head. I keep getting ahead of my notes, which are just meant to, make sure that I don't forget anything. But yeah, so he thinks that she's the princess of Altrana, who has came to, finally come to him because he's the prince, of course. And the oldest daughter, she's dating the girl that he killed accidentally. That girl that he killed, he's dating, the oldest daughter is now dating her brother. So he's watching them have dinner where the boy is like, yeah, I didn't think I would ever be eating dinner here, you know, and the girls are like, why? And they're like, what's going on? Why? No, 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 you said that for a reason. What's wrong? And he ends up telling them. And so Ronald is listening, and watching as he tells them, the guy, Ronald Melvin, that lived here, he murdered my sister. So that's actually how they find out that they are living in a house where this occurred. So, and when they asked what happened to him, you know, he was like, the police never found him. And, yeah, so the first thing right here, one of the things that I noticed right here, because time, you know, has went, and it's like approaching like a year. So one of the things that I noticed is, like, you know, he's in the he's in a bathroom, so he's got a toilet and he's got a sink, but there wasn't like a shower or anything in there. And it's like, you know, that dude has not had a bath, like a proper shower, because, you know, he would sneak out. He sneaks out on occasion, being very careful about all the neighbors, but he sneaks out on occasion when they're all gone. But I thought, you know, why don't you jump in the shower real quick? But then I thought, that would be a really, you know, I mean, because you can run when somebody comes up, but if you're in the middle of a shower, you might not hear them. So, but yeah, I kind of thought, he hasn't had a bath in at least over a year. You know what I mean? Like a proper bath. It's like, I don't know. It's a little strange. But all these little kind of thoughts will come to you as you try to put yourself into a situation like this. Did it look like he's opening his mouth? That's kind of cool. I just noticed that. Anyway, so when they were gone, he comes out, and this is like it's like a jump scare in the movie to me, and to like people that watch it, is he comes out and he's like, you know, they're all gone, so he comes out into the kitchen, and he is in the refrigerator, and they've already mentioned, you know, missing food, like somebody's hogging all of the boiled eggs and stuff. So he's of course having to sustain himself by eating whatever they have. So he's out in the kitchen and he's eating out of the fridge, and he turns around, and it's literally a jump scare, because he's just, you know, like happy, you know, oh my gosh, that was good. So he's absolutely eating, and he turns around, and there's that fucking nosy old lady standing in the doorway of the back door, looking him dead in the face. And you're like, oh. And she promptly, because he like looks at her like, oh, fuck. And he starts walking towards her, but I don't know what he was going to do. I don't know if I don't think he had anything on his mind except what? Well, she promptly has a heart attack and drops dead right there on top of the steps. Boom, to the bottom. She's gone. So he walks out the back door, and he goes down there, and he's like, Mrs. whatever her damn name was, you know, and he tries to shake her, and he's like, I'm going to get blamed for this too. And I'm like, right there with you, dude. I'm like, you know, shitty luck seems to like be hanging around your neck like a noose, yeah? So he accidentally kills this girl, and now this old lady drops dead. He's lost his mind anyway, from pure isolation and disassociation. So yeah, I'm gonna get blamed for this too. So he like drags her into his house, because another thing that he had done during the construction phase, when they had cleaned out the house and he was getting things prepared knowing that someone was going to move in, is he had made an escape hatch in the room into the crawl space under the house. So I guess that's where he took the old lady up under there and buried her. So, you know, he's pretty much 100% disassociated now. So, things are really going bad. In the meantime, the parents, they're like going to go on vacation. he has pretty much lost all touch with reality, especially after the old lady dropped dead and he had to bury another body. Um, he ends up now speaking about himself as Prince, what's his name? Norbert. So he becomes Prince Norbert, and he is actually referring to himself that way. He has really completely disassociated himself, and it's quite understandable. And the parents leave to go on this vacation. They're only going to be gone for 2 days, but they leave to go on vacation. The other two girls, the older girls, they leave, and then so the youngest one is there alone, and there is another really good jump scare, and that is when she goes up into her bedroom, and boom, there is that big giant poster of the Princess of Altara. She's like, what the fuck is that? And she turns around, and Ronald is behind her, not having had a bath for a year. And she screams, and I almost screamed, because the way that scene was shot, it's a really good jump scare, because you're kind of like, what the fuck? And then, oh my god. And so, yeah, that was good. That was really well filmed. So, she screams, and you also don't expect him to just blow his wad that way, right? Just like, time to come out. But, so he comes out, and he, like, puts his hand over her mouth, and tells her who he is, that he is Prince Norfolk. That's Queen Elizabeth. Norbert. There we go. I knew when I found out what his little cartoon name was that I was going to continuously get it mixed up with Norfolk, because I'm a British Anglophile. But so Norbert of Antara, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he begins to tell her that she's the princess, and that the reason she doesn't understand is because they keep hanging around the evil duke too much, talking about Carol's brother that the oldest sister is dating. He is the evil duke. He's completely lost his fucking mind, is what's happened. So she manages to get loose and screams out of the house. He chases her, and she mistakenly runs into the old lady's house next door, the one that's dead and underneath there. So there ain't nobody in there to help her. He quickly rips the phone stuff off the side of the house so she can't call out, and he goes in there and tries to get her, but he can't find her. So she goes down into the basement. He realizes that's where she's at, and he locks the basement door so she can't get out. And then he just goes back to the house. Now, I think that he did that because he knew the other two would be back soon. So it's like, okay, I've got her tucked away safe in the neighbor's basement. And take one problem at a time, because they're on their way home. So he goes back, he takes the poster down, writes a fake note like he did about himself at the beginning of the movie. He writes a fake one about her, saying that she ran away. Now, the sisters come in, and Dwayne, Carol's brother, they come in, and they think that she's ran away, but at the same time, they're like, that's bullshit, she wouldn't do that. And they call the cops. The cops come and dibble their way around the house and do absolutely nothing. They're like, oh no, she's just got mad, that you accused her of trying to break into your diary, and she's gone. She'll be back tonight, so they basically do fuck all, typical, and they leave. But they do tell them, hey, we'll keep an eye, just call us if anything goes on, lock all the doors and everything like that. So they want to leave and go get something to eat. So the two girls leave, and they leave Dwayne, in Ronald's mind, the evil duke. They leave him alone in the house while they go to fast food place to get some burgers. So he of course comes out and clocks him, knocks him out. At first you don't know, like, did he kill him or not? But then you see pretty quickly that he's just tied him up in his his hideaway, his hidden room. So the two girls come home, and there's an overturned chair and stuff like that, and Dwayne is gone. So they do call the cops. The cops come back this time and say, "Okay, some shit's going down." And so now we got the girl Babs is missing, and Dwayne is missing, with an obvious abduction scene in front of you. So finally they believe them, and are like, okay, something's going on, yeah. So they try to get the girls to go to a motel room, but the girls won't go. So the cops are like, well, okay, you can stay. Everything will be fine because we'll be outside down the street. I will be outside watching the house. Because they're like, well, what if he gets back in? Because we know it's this Ronald guy. And the cops are like, why would he come back here? I don't know what's going on, but I don't think it's him. But okay, even if it is him, he can't get in because we'll be outside watching the place. You, of course, are like, well, he don't need to get in, does he? So, yeah. So the girls, they go on up to bed. Now, we see Ronald in the hideaway with the boy, and he tells him that he's evil, and he is going to be banished from Altara and stuff like that, and he's packing up stuff like he's going to leave. I don't know what he was going to do actually, because he doesn't get the chance, because Dwayne decides that I'm in a nutcase, I'm not going to go down easy here. So he starts yelling and jumping and pushing and trying to get out of his restraints. The girls hear it, and they come down the stairs, like, what the fuck is that noise? Because everything looks fine, but you're hearing people fighting, but there's nobody fighting. So they're standing there in the living room hallway type thing, wondering. I swear I hear like a Chuck Norris breakdown going on, and yet there's nothing going on, but I hear it. About that time, one of the sisters sees this little white circle on the wall, because Ronald's got his lights on in that room, and it's coming through the pinhole. So she walks up to the light. It's a beautifully filmed scene, and she turns around and sees that peephole, and she walks up to it, and you're like, don't do that. You know what's going to happen if you do that. But she does. She walks up to it and puts her eyeball up against it, where Ronald's eyeball suddenly appears. She shits some mint like a normal person would. And he screams and busts through the paneling and tries to run outside. And the cops are all out there, of course, because Babs has gotten loose out of the basement from next door, and this has occurred. And they get him, and they take him off. And you see the three sisters and Dwayne in Ronald's room, looking around in amazement and going, oh my God, thank God, And so Ronald is carried off, probably, I would imagine, to sit in a cell next to, Norman Bates. And there you go. That was the end credits of Bad Ronald. And now I want to talk a little bit. Well, first, I don't know. I'll talk a little about the movie. Is Bad Ronald Bad Ronald? No, not to me. I do not think that Ronald had an evil bone in his body. He did not do any of this on purpose. He did not kill that little girl on purpose. He did push her, but you just heard me say at the beginning of this that I don't know. As an adult, I would still want to slap the hell out of somebody. I don't care if they were 12, if they were talking to me like she was. But if I was under 18 and being spoken to by someone under 18 who was talking to me like she was, I might push them too. Okay? He did not kill her. And you just heard me tell the story. There was nothing perverted, like it said on, perverted guy living in a thing. No, that's not true. There was nothing. They didn't show
any kind of sexuality of any kind really in this movie other than you knew he had a crush on, you know, Lori, and he went over there to ask her out. There was nothing. I mean, it's not like he had holes into a bathroom peeping at them stripping or something. There was nothing like that. There was nothing like that in this movie. I know I sound like I'm defending him, but I am defending him because it was a crappy situation. And what I think is so great about this movie is it shows, Scott Jacoby really played. Now, the movie is different than the book, okay? Now, the book is a different story. If you read the book, that, my opinion of Ronald is not the same in the book as it is in the movie. The movie made Ronald a different character than the book. Um, if you're interested in that, go find the book. But we're talking about this Ronald. So, you know, he didn't mean to kill the old lady. Curiosity killed that cat. It's cool to be able to say that in an actual literal sense. But curiosity killed her. And, that girl's mouth killed her. Because if you talk to me like that, you best get out of me face. That's all I gotta say. Don't say what she said to him too close, is all I gotta say. So it was all an accident. I think that it was a wonderful de-evolution of a human mind who got themselves into trouble. And, for 1974, to see an illustration of stir crazy, dissociative disorder, to see it, I'm not excusing. Well, wait a second. There's really nothing to excuse. I started to say I wasn't excusing his murders, but he didn't do any murders. He accidentally killed that little girl by pushing her. Yeah, that's true. So I'm not really explaining away anything. He went crazy. He completely disassociated himself and caused a lot of havoc. But imagine being in a situation like that, because I'm telling you, if my son, if my son walked in that exact same situation, I was really able to put myself in Kim Hunter's. Because if you see that scene where she's trying to figure out what the fuck to do, I don't know, she knew what happened and she believed her son. And we as the viewer saw what happened, so we know the son was telling the truth. So she believed her son in what he said, and we as the viewer knows that what he said was true. So knowing that, I would have, I would have been really pissed off too that he buried the body, and I wouldn't have known what to do. So it's one of those scruples questions, like that game that people play called Scruples, where you ask moral questions, moral ambiguous questions about what you would do in certain situations. I can't answer what I would do if Ronald was my son and he came in the exact same situation. I would not know what to do in 1974. Now 2020 might be, or 2022 might be a lot different, forensics and DNA and all that kind of stuff. But in 1974, I don't know. I mean, the plan didn't work out, but the plan only didn't work out. What if she had not had that gallbladder surgery and died? Well, we wouldn't have a movie. But I'm just saying, if she didn't have that gallbladder surgery, her plan could have worked. They stay there for 10, 12 months. She saves up the money she was talking about. She moves. They don't know where the son is. They sneak out in the middle of the night. Her plan could have worked had not she died in a routine surgery. So, yeah. So I love this movie very, very much. I love having it in my collection. And now I want to talk a little bit about this release. Okay, now if anyone has ever, this is one of those movies that people collectors hunt for, and they released a DVD in 2008 or 2009, and it is pretty much what you would expect of them trying to like push out a little movie for collectors. It was a watchable transfer, um, but that was about it. The care and the excellence they took in making this really, really surprised me. You can go and find comparisons on Google, comparisons between the DVD release from 2009 and the Blu-ray release from 2019, and you can see the difference in the pictures. Why they would take such excruciatingly detailed time to remaster a 1974 made-for-TV movie, probably because of its cult status, because it does have that. I mean, it's right there with Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. These two movies are like perfect together. But the picture, the sound, they made the sound even better. The DVD sound was pretty alright too. But the sound quality that they remastered for this, but the pictures will blow you away. I mean, this looks better than it could have possibly looked when it was screened on old 1974 televisions. But they completely color corrected it. They corrected the frame, because of course this is full frame, 133. The reason, but the DVD was like 128, and so they were able to correct the frame. And the picture quality in this is just so vibrant, so crisp. It is like watching an entirely different movie. It really doesn't even look like this movie was filmed in 1974. It looked like this movie was filmed in 2015. I mean, everything is so crisp and perfect in this. So, if you are a collector and you do have a thing for Bad Ronald, then yeah, I think I got this for about $20. So you can probably get it for like between 17 and 22, something like that. But this is an absolute phenomenal release, and like I saw someone else say, if you do have the DVD and you're like, why am I going to replace a bare bones DVD classic movie with a bare bones Blu-ray classic movie? Yeah, it's worth it. This is one of those that it is worth it. The picture quality, the remastering of this film is amazing. They obviously went and took a remastered transfer from the negative, is what they did for this, which is not what they did for the DVD. And so yeah, I would definitely say that if you're a collector, if you do have this on DVD, you don't have it. This is what you got to have. If you don't have it at all, but you're interested, watch the trailer, and I'm sure someplace you might could find it for free somewhere to watch. But yes, I love it. Bad Ronald, 1974, Scott Jacoby and Kim Hunter. Absolutely love it. And I will see you all in the next video. I did just watch another one, so I'm going to try to do that too. It is that time of year in Florida where I stay sick all the time. I either can't see or I can't breathe because of heaters being on. It's hot for 5 days, and then it's freezing cold for 5 days, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. So you'll have to excuse me if I have little periods where I don't post anything. But Bad Ronald, love it. So glad to have it. Recommend it to all horror fans. Although it's sort of like, well, some kind of weird, well, you know how horror is. But Love you, miss you, bye. I will see you in the next one.
Remember, you're a very special person. No matter what anyone is saying to you, don't bully. No matter what anyone's saying to you or what the world is saying to you, you are the only one of you. And always remember that. And what's another one? Support indie filmmakers. Support indie horror. Or this motherfucker will eat you. So, support indie filmmakers. Support indie films. Especially indie horror films. And I will see you in the next video. Love you, miss you. Bye. And stay scary. And keep screaming when appropriate. Only when appropriate. Which in this day and age is pretty much every time you wake up. Bye.